Hello, Wenatchee, Chelan County, and the world. This is Kevin Strickland, Wenatchee's most unrecognized victim of domestic violence. Thank you, Sage, once again for that distinction. Today, I want to discuss with you something that I wrote called A Conversation on Accountability. And this is in regards to, of course, the circumstances that I faced as a result of the police neglect and ineptitude and the lack of professionalism and all these things. And so, I do a lot of thinking, and this is something that's come back to me, so I've decided to write it out and actually do a video on it. So here goes. When I was 15, I was convicted of a felony for entering my neighbor's home without permission, and nothing was reported missing. When I was convicted, I was assured by more than one authority figure that my life was forever altered, and that by law I was destined to experience permanent limitations in terms of, with regard to employment, to voting rights, gun ownership, that sort of thing. So in effect, crawling through my neighbor's window that day took away my constitutional rights. Talk about accountability. Talk about a tough on crime attitude. So the law effectively eliminated what I call the "you can be anything you want to be" act that we've been watching since we were children. And I'm sure that they thought that they were nipping a criminal career in the bud. But this type of scenario was playing all over the country, and it's part of the history of our justice system. So later they modified that law to say that if you could go 4 years into adulthood without committing another felony, that you could have those juvenile crimes squashed. Well, I had ended up with 2 felonies by the time I was 18. The first one, of course, was crawling through the neighbor's window. I had a Class C felony for a simple assault, and that was for breaking a kid's nose as a result of a love triangle. That's what boys do, you know. That was dropped basically to a misdemeanor. And then I had another felony later on. I think I was maybe close to 17 when we were invited, me and a buddy were invited into these girls' house. They took my buddy in the back room. I took the liberty of going through their purses. Took $100, went and spent it. I got ratted on. They came and arrested me, took me to juvenile hall, and they charged me with a felony rather than a felony burglary. Rather than theft and that sort of thing. The fact that I was invited to the home was a non-issue, but of course I didn't have a public defender to actually do anything for me. And I don't even recall my mother being there but one time, and so I don't even know what the rules were in terms of, your parents being present when they were taking your freedom away. Things were different back then. So, at the age of 18 and after listening, or 19 and after listening to 4 years of the "your life is over" rhetoric, to say that I was discouraged would be like calling roadkill sleepy. I was more than sleepy. I committed a third felony as an adult. That was a second-degree assault wherein I was completely wrong in all aspects of it. I pled guilty, and I was sentenced to 6 months in jail. I did 101 days in the county, and then I was sent to a work release program. But at that point, I'd kind of accepted my lot. My life would never be normal. I wasn't being told anything that I didn't already know. And besides, I had tons of examples to sit and look at, both when I was in jail and on the street, in the party scene, or just on the street. And I found myself living on the streets and staying in parks and laundromats and churches and under people's beds. So let's just say that I've made some solid decisions since then. But I never really got that life back, or that imagination that you can be anything you want attitude. I was held accountable for my crimes, no doubt. But the question is, where was the critical thinking of lawmakers back then? We're busy implementing a caste system where the criminals were being invented, and crime fighting, along with crime fighting tactics and techniques, in this war on drugs, they were starting to privatize institutions and beginning to create the lives for revenue infrastructure that we have today. The one where potheads equaled dollar signs. So fast forward to 50-year-old me sitting in my living room and thinking about that history. Where was my defense attorney? There was nothing stolen from the home, so you couldn't have gotten it down to a theft and escaped a felony and ruining the kid's life. Especially the fact that they had hired me to crawl through that same window to get cat food to feed their cat while they were on vacation. To this day, I don't know what evidence they used to convict me of that felony. And another question is, where were my parents? I'm looking back at all these crimes and convictions that I experienced. I can remember my mom being there once in the courtroom. Other than that, her picking me up after doing my time. Needless to say, with that sort of lack of guardianship, once I entered the system, they could do anything they wanted with me, and they did. Public officials are not being held accountable. They will perceivably ruin a child's life for crawling through a window, but they won't reprimand one of their own if there is greater accountability as a consequence. But I've continued to investigate and look into the culture of the Wenatchee Police Department. I'm going to tell you that I predict a fallout. And part of my last public records request indicates that, and I'd like to share that with you now.